Thank you so much. Yes,
Yep.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
for that.
Yeah, thank you.
She just got on. I'm looking. Sure, if you get back some feedback.
Good evening, thank you. First of all, I think it's a great event. The key for us is two things. One, the timing is just very, very difficult for us. If this event were in front of us for October, after Oktoberfest, or for next year, when there would be plenty of time to vet a lot of the issues, we could see that this would have potential. Obviously, absorbing all the costs from the village end is just very disheartening, to be honest with you, because of what we're all going through right now. But I think the event has a lot of positives about it. It's just, again, just so you can see the pitch. Oh, first of all, as far as the cost we gave you, the cost came from Todd Smith regarding what he would have anticipated DPW needing to provide for the event, and several discussions with Chief Pignatelli. One of the things for Oktoberfest is that we are able to get some free help from the county, which he would not ask for this event, which would mean more of expense. And in correspondence with Michelle, who's been extremely helpful trying to share information with me, they now want to extend the day possibly by having music after the food vendors leave, which means the longer the hours, the higher the cost. We have to have our men on duty, so it's a lot of money, but a lot of things can be discussed. I think you should consider it, but when you're looking at trying to fit it in, if you're leaning towards thinking about it, we start with the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Nature Center, May 13th, Memorial Day weekend on the 28th and 29th, the parade, the Girl Scout Day celebration in the Irvington Woods Park on June 2nd, the proposed river art thing on June 3rd, host graduation on the 16th and the 17th, 16th being the setup, assist with Juneteenth on June 20th, July 4th fireworks if they happen, start of camp and Teenscape, and prepare for Oktoberfest. And just as a point, we have been working on Oktoberfest, little discussions in December, but full out starting in January for a September event. I mean, we've already had to book stages, and Bob and Brian are working on bands. It takes a lot of time to put this thing together. And it's similar, in fact, Michelle even mentioned in one of her emails, since what Oktoberfest does works, maybe they're going to try to mirror that. And mirroring that is a large event. And it's something you can't do without us being part of it. And so I think we need to build a relationship, and we should look at this down the road, And then 2 weeks from graduation, I have Chris DePauli here in case anyone wondered why we didn't think we could get ready for graduation. If it's a wet day, if let's say, they're ready to go Friday night and it rains Saturday morning, but then it clears up, the area where graduation will be destroyed. And getting it ready in 2 weeks is no easy feat. And it's not 2 weeks, because we'd have to wait for all of their materials to be removed from the park. Then we'd have to go in and, as we always do 2 weeks before, Chris, stop me if I'm wrong, we seed and we fertilize, and then we have to be done with the park in pristine condition by Thursday of graduation week so that they can come in and do their setup and then hold their event. There's a very small window for us. So if that event ends up having bad weather, or if they do get 4,000 people, the chance of us being able to get ready for graduation is scary to us. That's just being as honest as I can about it. So I'd like to see us consider it. I'd like it to be at a different time. Okay? Thank you.
Arlene, can you hear yet?
She can't hear.
She was having trouble hearing, yeah. Let's see if she had any
Well, she's
questions
on,
or comments. Text her.
she's on mute, yeah.
Well, she's muted, so we can't hear her.
Said she was trying to get on, she's trying to go from her computer to her phone. Anyway, I mean, we can always get her feedback on this issue because it's not being decided tonight anyways.
Right, right. It's going through.
The joys and pitfalls of technology.
Yeah, no, I mean, audio's going out, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, we'll follow up in the next week or so, with either questions or concerns or green lights or red lights or, so, yeah, I think that the short answer is we'll get back to you guys as soon as possible. You know, probably, I'd say we'll target maybe the end of next week. It is, vacation week or school vacation week, but, we still have to try. Are you around next week?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So, yeah, we'll try to, again, I know time is of the essence.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have budget workshops for, I guess, the libraries first.
They were told to be here at 7:30.
Yes, they were told 7:30.
Because I met with them today.
I
What-
misjudged.
Should we do the review of the traffic study proposal?
Well, I have to get Mary Ann on that for that. Hold on.
Let's have Arlene go.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Arlene.
Let's see. Oh, boy. I shouldn't have questioned your ability to move something along. That's where I fell short.
It's very hard to handicap these things.
Yeah.
Well, Rosemary said she was going home and coming back, so she said she was leaving.
Yeah.
She'll be here at 7:30, so.
Yeah, yeah. That's fine.
There's Greg, so I guess the theater can go.
Yeah.
You're always ready to go, right? A little improv?
We
Ready?
we had a little change
Yeah,
on our
ready.
plans.
If you want to go, we'll get you out of here quicker.
You're
And
taking-
then? So.
I was gonna sneak in and sit in the back.
No, perfect.
You get to sit in the front.
Yeah, so.
The hot seat.
So if you're ready and want to go, this will let you get back to your regularly scheduled life.
Programming, okay. Hi, Greg.
Welcome. Good to see you. So, I think that's it.
You want me to start off?
Sure.
Okay, so Greg did an excellent job at identifying areas where he could cut costs. I know the theater is a very up in the air situation right now, I guess, kind of trying to determine when it's going to reopen. So the numbers in here with like the revenues and even the cleaning costs are under the assumption that the theater would probably open sometime around the summer, which could happen or could not happen. So the areas that we think that we could cut back on are the supplies line by 300, office supplies by 200, postage and freight 1,000, publicity and printing 900, the rent repair of office equipment 500, because he's returning the copier, repairs of buildings 400, and repairs and maintenance of equipment 500. So that would give us a total decrease on those line items by 3,800.
You're returning a copier, or are we gonna use a mimeograph machine?
Yeah, exactly. We have this huge old Ricoh copier that's just not necessary. I don't really need a fax machine in my office. All it does is it goes off and things come in from random people, so I don't.
Sounds great.
So yeah, we were able to decrease the amount that we were asked. And That was it for us on this part. I did have one more other thing I wanted to talk about, if I could, very quickly, because it's about budgeting. It's weird to discuss this because we're in a year about trying to cut back on the budget, and I realized that. I just wanted to share, I was going to share with some of the newer people. I will be here, it'll be 9 years this May. It's kind of weird to think about. But when I started, I came in, I took a look at how things are run. I'm like, okay, how can we reorganize so that we're run like other professional arts centers that are around? So I made some changes and of how like our box office is done, our marketing. Ryan Frame was our tech director at the time. He'd been here longer than I had, and I made him our operations manager. Ryan is an engineer who works in the industry on Broadway shows. So he's in that world all the time. He's a part-time employee with the Village, but he has these qualifications and this expertise that's just been invaluable to us. I say this because a few years ago, I came in front of you guys or who was here then?
I was gonna say.
And it wasn't all of you. And I talked about trying to get his hourly rate raised. I thought it was $31 an hour. I found out from Katie that was wrong. It's $28.75, and I already thought we were up at 31. He has saved the Village money during this HVAC project because he took it on. He's been managing it from the theater standpoint, working with Larry, working with Ed, working with me. But so much of it is beyond my knowledge, and it is in his wheelhouse. And so he's been doing that for us. He's going to continue to do that in the new budget. And I just look at this and I think we would have had to have hired a consultant for that kind of work. And we didn't have to do that because he just took it on and managed it because he had that knowledge. It was great that we had that knowledge in-house. I don't have a number that I'm proposing. I know this is just a workshop meeting and you guys are taking all the budgets and going to go talk. I just want to know if I could stick that in the back of your heads. So when you're talking, you can think about if there was some way that we could raise that hourly rate somewhat for him. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Are you proposing 31 or were you proposing more?
I mean, I think that would be great because that's what I thought we were there. So, but I wasn't going to propose. I just thought, I don't know what's going to happen by the end when you sit down with all these budgets and see what's there. But it would be nice if we could get it up a little bit more.
Maybe you can let us know what the impact would be on the budget.
For 31?
Yeah.
Yep. And the number of hours would stay
That stays the same, yeah.
Okay.
Stop for 7 minutes.
Oh, we're waiting for Margaret. So now I will be doing the puppet portion. I happen to have him in my back pocket.
I thought you had a one-man play in your pocket.
Well, I always have that.
I just actually saw a great one-man show, the Irish Rep Theater called The Smuggler. It was insane. I was exhausted watching the person do it. Actually, I know the guy. He used to be an owner of a bar. He used to act. And he's like, I'm giving up full time. That was probably about 10 years ago.
Really?
He's pretty incredible.
We have a couple of one-man, so we're doing our Playfest that we started while we've been closed. We started getting people from all around the country that were submitting plays to us, and we did the short Playfest. We had it virtual the past 2 years. This year, we're doing it virtually for a week, but then we also chose 3 that we're going to present live at Mercy College. And a couple of those are one-person shows. So they were just these monologues that really spoke to us. We had 44 people submit to us. We narrowed it down to 7. There's still some really great ones that we're going to use later on as part of our Arts Incubator series that we can rotate them through and put them on our YouTube channel. It's just something to keep us out there and let people keep knowing we exist. It keeps us out on social media and our email blasts that something's happening while we're closed. So we're grateful to Mercy College. We've worked with the library. We've done a reading down there in the fall. We've worked with the rec department. So we're trying to spread out where we go and do all we work with. So this time it's Mercy.
Great. Yeah, and I actually had, I kind of told him about your Arts Incubator. He actually is the creative director for First Virgin in the city, which is they bring over European shows that haven't been in the U.S. before. It's the First Virgin kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was like, I wanted to start a presence in the suburbs. I said, well, I got the guy for you and I have a venue for you. I said, it's just not ready yet.
We almost have a venue for you.
Yeah. So he's excited to meet with you when the time is right as well.
Oh, cool. That'd be good.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. It's an interesting theater. It's been a like theater festival, I guess it was all January and February, or half of January and February, something like that.
Really? Well, it's funny, Joe was saying to me, go do something in the park, and I'm like, well, I didn't think I could, except we didn't know winter was gonna be 61 degrees. I could have done something tonight in the park.
You were cutting out all salts from next year's budget?
Yeah, exactly.
There's gonna be a surplus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Just in time, right?
yeah, it's, you can never count on it, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
I think exactly, I was ready for March to have the bottom drop out, and that's when I cried, because by then I have no more patience.
Oh, right.
For the
This
15
has
inches of
been
snow.
crazy.
Oh, hold on,
Especially today.
Today was unbelievable.
hold on one second. Arlene, we're not hearing you very well, so. Yeah,
Her microphone's not on.
yeah, the volume's up.
She sounds like she has a sore throat.
We really, Arlene?
Can you hear me better or no?
Barely.
I think it's a microphone.
Yeah, it
problem.
sounds like a microphone thing.
Never mind. Never mind.
Sorry,
Forgot, never mind.
I know.
No worries.
That was better.
No, not really.
No worries.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. you, but
No.
It's,
We were just filling anyway.
This is just banter.
Yeah,
As
right.
people go.
I did the calculation for the
Say it slower.
increase, so it's
Slower with feelings.
$2,340 would be the impact of the increase to $31.
That was impressively fast.
I had to break out the calculator,
exact as
but.
And $41.
Right, because if it was $35, that would be a different story, but at 41, you know.
So as far as the plan's going, I don't know if you covered this when I had to step out for a second. We're working our way through the plans. We had a review meeting last week, I think it was. We're getting some comments together that we need to then send over to the engineers. The plans were not ready for public bidding, I would say, is the safest way to say it. So we need to get them cleaned up a bit. And, some important issues worked out. And then hopefully, I don't know timing yet. I'm not going to say anything on that because we still have to,
None of us want to say anything on time.
we still have to meet with them to go over
Yeah.
these comments to see how long it's going to take to fix things up. And then hopefully we can get out the bid. So everyone's actively working on it. Maybe not as fast as we'd like, but we're working on it.
I'm just drinking more, that's all.
Yeah.
Water.
Is that in the budget or are you providing?
This
Exactly.
keeps in the copier upstairs.
Till I return.
Until it's empty. Is there a kind of a timeline of when that process will be over to get the specs ready for bid? Is that like
Yeah.
the end of in March sometime? Or? I know it's-
It depends on their response to our comments that we have. The plans were pretty deficient, so they need to either be tightened up or they have to look at it again. I don't know, but so I would say by the time we meet with them, say next week sometime,
Oh, better, yeah.
a month after that is probably the fastest I would see anything happen. So I guess that's March, but it's pretty,
Cutting it
I don't want to
close.
commit to that. I think it's going to be longer than that. So sorry to say that, but that's.
And how long do we think the process will be once somebody gets the job and is doing the work?
Well, we should probably ask them, but is it a 9 months is kind of? is it-
Right, because then the contractor's gonna have some thoughts on how long it's gonna take, and it's gonna come down to the equipment that we're ordering and how much things are backlogged. Because everything, the supply chain. However, the unit that we're looking at for inside the room, because it's no longer going on top of the building, supposedly is easier to get. We'll see.
Okay.
It's not as large as it would have been if it were on top of the building.
We'll take the small victory.
And I'm hearing the supply chain is getting better, right?
Yeah,
We waited it out.
it just depends on where, that's all. Which items you're really looking at. But. All right. That's it for theater. Any other questions?
This is pretty straightforward.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Greg.
Before the library gets here.
I know, right?
Oh,
One person's here, yeah.
Tag, you're it.
Before we jump in on the library,
Thank you all.
Thanks, Greg. Take care.
I think Rosemary's on her way, but As far as the agenda goes, I know we had priorities listed on here. If time permits, after budget presentation and the other item on the agenda, if you want to go over and at least get some initial feedback to me, or
Yeah.
or if not and you're not ready, that's fine. You know, we'll get it onto a meeting at some point, but any guidance you have would be great. So,
But we have the library.
yes. With that, we're actually right, we're
We're
ready for
here.
the library.
When Rosemary told me 7:30, I was saying to myself, you know, it could be sooner, but I didn't want to say anything, so.
And I misjudged the first item, obviously, so.
That's-
Welcome.
Actually have a few things for you,
Props.
some props, yeah. Well,
That
you-
was the theater,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay, yes, well, you know, once upon a time, the theater in this building was part of the library, so, I mean, it's, but I don't know if you're familiar with this, publication, the Rivertown's Buzz. It was, or the Neighborhood Buzz, it was, the local, when it started about, at some point last year. So it is a local publication, and one of their articles is focus on Rivertown's libraries. And I made copies for you, of the articles, because it's really very nice. I got permission from the editor.
Oh, nice.
He actually said, that unfortunately his shipment of the new, of extra copies was not, didn't come in time. So.
So he was happy for you to copy them.
He was happy to have me distribute it
Thank
here.
you so
Oh,
much.
yes, very much so. But anyway,
Thank
Sure.
you, sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then also, actually, while I'm handing things out, I have copies of a little infographic about the library and what we did last year.
Greg's gonna stop this game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, should the other sheet now too, or do you want to?
Why don't you wait on that, but I actually need a copy of the new one too, yeah.
Not here, I think that's two.
Okay. And also yesterday, there was a great article online in the Times, I don't know what print edition, because I'm always behind on that, about a love letter to libraries, a belated love letter, and just before I left, there were almost 700 comments about people and their memories about the impact that libraries had upon them. So it's like a 5-minute read. It's a really short, great article, lots of pictures. And they went to 7 libraries across the country, actually come to ours, but it's a really great article. I would encourage anybody to read it.
Great.
All right,
Introduced you.
ready? Okay.
Ready as it's gonna be.
Okay. So the first line item we have on here is the library charges, which is revenues that the library receives for pretty much late fees. So we're projecting that will decrease about $2,000 from the current budget. And then on the other side, book sale donations, we're projecting will increase about $500, and that's based on current year activity. The next 2 lines, contingency, and so the contingency line is going to increase based on our predicted non-union salary increase percentage that we're using. And then this personnel services line, that's just reflective of the current salaries. So last year, that amount would have been in contingency, and then once it got approved, it's now in the personnel services line. The next line, they'll go into more detail, but they're requesting a $14,000 budget increase to increase the salary of their principal library clerk from $41,718 to $55,000, and it's based on a comparison of salaries from surrounding libraries.
Right, so, I mean,
Throughout Westchester, actually.
throughout
Yeah.
Westchester. Yeah, do you, should I distribute that now then, or?
No,
We'll talk, when we talk
discuss
about it, okay.
So should I move on to
You can-
the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
one?
we'll go
Okay.
back.
So then the next item is the labor line, which is the part-time. And then they're requesting an increase from $18 an hour to $28 an hour. It's for a specific employee, a part-time clerk. And then they would also like to increase her hours from 12 hours a week to 17 hours a week. And the impact of that would be $13,520. Do you want to say anything about that, or you'll wait
Well,
until the
yeah,
end?
we're gonna go
Okay.
through both of those together.
Then we have the longevity unused sick time. That is gonna increase by $1,100, and that's just based on the time that the staff have been there and the salaries. The contract with other libraries line, we're anticipating a 5% increase in the contract costs for a total of $2,500. The next line, the library building is shared with apartments, so they're shared expenses that are allocated between the two. So we're anticipating a $5,000 increase in those expenses. So that also includes utilities, which will contribute to the increase. That's pretty much the same thing for the next utilities line. I did a projection on, based on the NYPA and Con Ed costs, where we're gonna end up at the end of this year, and comparing that to the budget. I predict that they'll need to increase it about $11,500. The library thinks that they can cut the costs on the repairs and maintenance equipment line by $2,000. The state retirement, due to the increase in rates, will increase about $10,545. Social Security, based on salary increases, will increase $2,000. The $2,000 is if all of these increases are approved. If they're not, then it would be less than that. Life insurance, we have a savings of $200. This hospital and medical insurance line would increase about $10,400. This amount is included in our original budget overview increase amount. Dental insurance, our rates aren't changing this year, so to be reflective of the current rates and policies, that will decrease about $1,880. Same thing with vision policies, the savings of, or it'll go up $30. The debt service line, due to the serial bond payments, will go down $124. And then the library is suggesting that since they had a $259,000 fund balance at the end of last year. 211.
We thought sort of, if it's 259, that would be a lovely surprise, but we thought it was 211.
Maybe that was
Sorry.
the year before.
Maybe,
Okay, I'll double check that one.
Was that high? But it, according to,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's just that Brenda would tell me in September, and she'd say, that's all I'm gonna say for the year.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it could change, and I would not know.
Okay, so I'll double check that number, but either way, it's a healthy fund balance. They're suggesting to use 14,000 of their fund balance to cover the 14,000 personnel services line increase. So the total impact of all of these would increase the amount that the general fund needs to transfer into the library fund by $60,845.
I, 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 I,
$60,845.
So if you want to circle back on the two
Yeah, well,
personnel.
I wanted to
I'll let
give a little, I like to do a little state of the library speech. And last year, of course, after being closed for almost 2 years, we finally started to reopen to the public, so that's really major for us. Starting last February, we started some of the children's programs in person, and by April, they were all in person. The adult programs were slightly behind. They started being back in person in June. So between the mix of being online and in person, we still managed to have a really robust offering to our patrons. In adult programs, we started in-person yoga. We have the online memoir writing. Both of those were extremely popular before the pandemic. They continue to be. Our Thursday evening book clubs do well. Our monthly lectures by Tony Keene draw anywhere from 15 to 37 attendees. Those are online. We had a repair club in April that drew 50 people to come and get their items repaired. Cachette has been collaborating with other local historical societies and other libraries to bring programs of interest, and they've been very well attended. Our teen program is really growing under Linda, our young adult librarian. She's expanded the teen volunteer program. We have teens coming in throughout the year to help shelf books and do projects. In conjunction with the Westchester Youth Congress Irvington chapter, they collected 96 gently used Halloween costumes to be donated to a local nonprofit. They brought back 2 chess clubs, which is also really popular. We have advanced beginner and competitive at this point. And she has a weekly knitting group drawing 8 participants. So for that, that's pretty amazing. In children's, our children's programs are really amazing. We are known for our children's programs. People want more. People want, they basically want it 24/7 at this point, and they are annoyed that they have to sign up and that there are wait lists. The May Touch a Truck event, which was the first time in 2 years, which brings all the Irvington, the ambulance and the garbage truck and the fire truck and everybody else, had over 200 attendees. That was really terrific. The summer reading program was Oceans of Possibilities. The kids read 62,000 minutes in 2 months. September, we started our weekly story times in person. Those are definitely full with wait lists. We brought back 4 book clubs for grades 2 through 5. So that's basically what we've done with our programming. So now we'll address our personnel issues.
Sure. Probably the first thing that it would be good for us to talk about would be the principal library clerk. And that is a little bit of history. In dealing with other, basically running the business side of the library, it is very helpful for us to have someone who is keeping track of the billing, who is available for vendors to contact, to manage. I mean, the billing can be just a mess. I mean, there's so much going on.
I have that.
And also, helping run the clerical staff, the frontline staff, people who, who greet the people who come into the library, people who come into the library may or may not have a reference question, but everybody's going to see the person at the front desk. So that, that's a very important position in the library. That's something that has to be, supervision of that, the direct supervision of that, the managing of that department is really very important. So we petitioned civil service, and after working out the financing here, to be able to hire a full-time clerk. It turns out through various things, and this sort of all happened during the pandemic, during the beginning of the pandemic. The approval that we finally got was for a principal library clerk. I had applied for a senior clerk, which turns out to not be what we needed. I made a mistake on that. So the unfortunate thing was that when we canvassed for principal library clerk at $40,000, we had nobody that would take it. So we had a staff person who stepped up and was accepted to the position, appointed to the position provisionally. She has since taken the exam. She is on the list of people I can canvass. So now I have to canvass for this position. But we feel that we cannot, again, offer it at this rate. When you look at what other libraries in Westchester County are paying their principal library clerks, $40,000 is, you know, not even close to the average. And we're only asking to increase it to 55, which is still below. It's still below the average, which is $65,000 for this position in the county. I'm kind of hoping that maybe part of that seniority to help bring it up for people, and Steph's brought it up to people. So I'm hoping 55 is not an unreasonable salary to offer for this, and that qualified candidates would, you know, well, hopefully it's a new list too. So hopefully they are good people, and hopefully we'd actually have somebody who would want to take the position. So we feel that we cannot offer this position at less than $55,000 and get anybody who will take it.
Well, you have a range, right?
Well, I'm going to offer it at 50 to 55. I think that is a fair thing. That is what I did 4 years ago for a librarian one, and we had some fairly decent candidates for that. And I'm hoping, because the way hierarchies work in libraries, even though a librarian one is not a supervisor position, a principal library clerk is, librarians tend to be paid more than clerks because of the vast degrees that they need for the position. So we figured that, you know, offering that as a starting salary should be an acceptable range. And that's what we would like to be able to do. So that is the first increase that we request under personnel services.
In the part-time clerk?
And the part-time clerk, this is another thing that sort of happened during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we had a clerk who would, you know, just, you know, when our children's librarian wanted to try and do something with, you know, create an Instagram account, you know, they would sort of talk about it. You know, they would just sort of, you know, she'd be the person people would ask because she was very savvy about social networking. And when the pandemic happened and we shut down, that was a real crisis for the library, because up to that point, our website was all come to the library, you know, these are all the things we're doing, come on in. All the whole purpose of any social media we had, which was limited, and our website was to draw people in. All of a sudden, we had to flip everything around and have everything virtual. And because of the help that this clerk had given before, it was suggested that she attend the Zoom meetings we had when we came up with the strategy to revamp our website and to figure out how to offer online programming. At the beginning, she sort of helped out, like hosting the Zoom program, so this children's librarian could pay attention to doing the story time and actually, you know, not have to like keep muting the kids who figured out how to unmute themselves pretty fast. And things like that. So it started as that, but it developed into something more. And ultimately, over the course of 2 years, this very talented young lady started offering programs herself. She actually started running all of our book clubs, which are very labor intensive because we offer 4 different book clubs, or we were offering, until she finally said, you know what, I can't do this for this rate. I have to kind of try and earn money other ways. But anyway, so she stopped. But up until then, she was doing 4 book clubs, which involves reading 4 different books and preparing the questions and everything for them. 4 book clubs a month, for 2 for the 2nd and 3rd grade level, where you have different reading levels, then 1 for 4th and 5th, and 1 for middle school. And our average attendance at these when they were ongoing was 8, although we occasionally had attendance up to 13, which for these ages is actually getting, you know, these are when the kids are starting to have other after school activities. This is the age when we've been losing children. So the fact that she was doing this and they were coming to the library has been tremendous. And I'm sorry that she's had to stop it again, because it was just getting to be too much. And I really should, I mean, she's working out of title, and something I'm not supposed to allow as, you know, running a civil service library. So when I talked to our civil service rep about this, he suggested that one other thing too, which I should have mentioned, this young lady has now decided to attend library school. So she is now halfway through the process of becoming an actual librarian, working on her master's in library science. I mentioned this to our representative of civil service. He said, that sounds like more of a librarian trainee position, which is something that, we would be able to hire her for, which would then give her, allow her to do these things legally under civil service guidelines. And also it would enhance our library tremendously. Since she stopped doing since I had her stop doing the book clubs, we've had a lot of complaints because they were very popular and people keep asking me when they're going to start. And I mean, if I have to look into hiring somebody else to do it, it's going to cost me, a couple $100 a month for that, to have somebody to bring in an outside vendor. Most of our children's programs run between $75 and $120 per session, to have an expert come in and run them. So with these 4 book clubs, I don't know what sort of deal we could come up with, but I'm sure it'll be several $100s a month. The other thing that she's doing is working with our social media, which is something she's continuing to do. I'm kind of looking the other way on this, but again, I really shouldn't be. As you can see from our statistics, I mean, we have a pretty robust Facebook and Instagram. Those are just the 2 that we mentioned, but I mean, we are present on Twitter and other social media. Our website is being updated a lot, and she's not the only person doing this. Our programming librarian does as well. But the thing is, we really do need to have, with all the things that are going on, we do need to have 2 people working on this, between the children's programs and the adult programs and just other information that we have to get out there. It does seem to need 2 people, keeping an eye on it. I mean, if I were to hire a social media consultant to help, that's $28 an hour there too. So I mean, this is something that having her work with a, in-house doing this, increasing her to a $28 an hour wage, getting all of these services that she can offer, would be very helpful. Plus, she's very popular with kids, I have to say. I mean, everybody loves her. So that's another aspect.
And she's also, she's an Irving Newtonian.
Yes.
And she started as a page, so
Yeah.
she's been with us over 10 years already.
Right.
She's 26 years old. So she has her undergraduate degree. She already has a master's in English. I mean, she's extremely bright. I happened to walk in the library one day in December when she was doing one of the book clubs with the 4th and 5th graders. And she invited me to sit in, and I was surprised there were 5 boys and 1 girl. I would have expected the reverse, quite honestly. It was something about the swamplands of New Jersey, and being from New Jersey, I picked up on that part of it, but I don't remember the title. And they were so engaged. They got a little out of hand, the boys, and she would, reel them back in, and they were there for an hour, and they had a great time. And to see our book clubs disappear, as a library, I find that very difficult, to be perfectly honest. To have 4 book clubs a month disappear, I think, especially given the fact that we've just done our community survey, and that is something that people wanted more of for children's activities. I just think it would come back to bite us. So.
And also, I will also point out that she created this for me. I gave her a pile of facts, and she, the next day, this was sitting on my desk. So I mean, she's very talented, very. She's a wonderful person. And again, she's a local, and it's been lovely watching her grow. I mean, she was a page when I started as a director. So I mean, I've really been watching her, blossom in the library. And,
Rosemary, didn't you mention to me something about that there's going to be room made for this in the next couple of years?
Okay, yes. This is another thing too. My plan for the next few years for the library is that currently we have 4 part-time librarians working at the library, in addition to the 2 full-time librarians and myself. I am planning, and sort of my long game is when 2 of these retire, which I am anticipating is something, it's not unreasonable to assume will happen in the next 5 or 6 years. I would like to replace them with library assistants. A library assistant makes about $10 an hour less than a librarian. A library assistant is, by civil service, allowed to sit at the reference desk and answer reference questions, be helpful, help people find books, that aspect of what librarians do.
And programming.
And they can help out with programming, they can help. But they don't, and I don't actually do a lot with programming, but what they can't do is they can't do the actual management of the collection, which librarians do. I don't think, I mean, we basically have 6 librarians who all have the qualifications to do the librarian work at the library. I think we can get by with 4, you know, two full-time, and so 3 full-time equivalents for a librarian, that's plenty. And basically, so I'm seeing this as a long-term strategy to lower our personnel costs. I mean, obviously at this point I can't fire my librarians, but given the ages of the librarians, the part-time librarians that we have, I think it is not unreasonable to assume that there will be retirements within 5 years. So this is my long-term strategy. The unfortunate thing is with the pandemic and the way that things worked out with this particular clerk, it's sort of pushing me forward for now. But I mean, we can't wait. I mean, it's just we can't not use her now, and it just sort of happened early. But ultimately, I see down the line that the position she has now, which if we do the librarian trainee, is by civil service law limited to, it's 3 years, but she's going to finish her degree before that, and as soon as she finishes her degree, that position will disappear, and then you know that will be that.
One other cost-saving measure that we discussed with Larry previously towards the end of the year was we started reviewing the original condominium agreement between Brennan Building and the Village of Irvington. When I came on board, which was, I don't even remember, it's so long ago, like 2006, something like that. I was always told that all of the expenses of the chiller for the air conditioning, which covers the library and the west side of the building, the tenants in the front, was paid for by the library. And we went through the agreement, we reviewed it with Pat Gilmartin, our former board member, and Sarah Kelsey, our current board member, who are both lawyers. And there is nothing in that agreement that indicates that we are responsible for 100% of those bills. So we have to determine what kind of a shared expense it will be, and so that it's not borne only by us. And then Larry was going to look into an analysis of the load between the library and the condo unit. Most of our expenses are like 62-38. This may be closer to 50-50 because the back units have their own window units that they pay for, but it's the front, the west side and the library. But that will certainly lead to a cost savings once we can determine what that appropriate allocation is.
I mean, in our budget ask, we actually did the normal anticipation of increases for things, but we're actually hoping that, because we don't know how much this will be, we don't know exactly how this is going to be affected. And the actual way that is worded in the agreement is it says any parts of the heating and cooling system that affect both the tenants and the library, which seems to be mostly chiller things, but I suppose if something actually does do both, does both heating and cooling and somehow affects both of our units, which there may be equipment. I'm not, despite how intimately I've gotten to know our HVAC system, I'm not that much of an expert. there may be other parts, so we don't know what aspects of it might actually be shared costs, which might then make it that we have to pay less for that. So that may actually, this is sort of like a maximum it could possibly be for thinking. So we're hoping actually it will go down.
At the risk of jinxing things, how is it going with the HVAC system as well as leaks? And I feel like we've been on it was like pre-COVID and then COVID.
Well, actually, we didn't have any major disasters
Does
last
anybody
year.
have real wood to touch when we say that?
No, I mean, I when Rosemary arrived, I said, I went through everything and we didn't have any major building disasters last year, which is, I mean, we're still waiting for, it took a while for damage from Ida to be corrected, such as the carpet tiles, that took a while.
The shelving
We're still waiting
hasn't
for the shelving, but hopefully, our fingers crossed, it's this month. Workforce put a canopy up in the tenant terrace area, which has helped with the leaks from the skylight, not having the water come directly down. So,
Yeah. I mean, basically, I mean, I would say, you know, nothing major at all, but then there was an incident in the there was an incident in the building just 2 weeks ago when we had that, when things got so cold, we had the power outage and the freeze, and a pipe broke, and actually the plumber was repairing it today and found additional leaks. It affected apartments. It did not come down into, that didn't come down into the library. We did have some leakage in the program room, but the Burnham building folks will be repairing our ceiling where it broke. Most of the damage was confined to the stairwell. So we were lucky with that. But yeah, no, this was actually this past year for
first time in a while.
And you weren't reimbursed for the, was it 24,000 books?
Well, there was 28,000 in children's books, so that's from when we had the mold issue in 2020.
The summer of 20, we were already closed, the summer of
The
2020.
summer of 2020. There was a bit of a hiccup with that, and our insurance adjuster said he would explain it, you know, would go over things with folks, and then unfortunately passed away. So now every time it's been brought up since, I don't even know where the status is of that one. That's I mean, so that was pre-Ida, and Ida, I think, took out everybody's focus.
Yeah.
So that is sort of an outstanding thing, which is why when we were looking at our bills and we were or at our expenses, we were thinking, well, you know, what can we cut? We cut books, which we would be able to do anyway. But then because we are still absorbing the hit of the replacement of those $28,000 in children's books, you know, it's kind of really hard to think about even cutting in that one line.
And we are really fortunate that the Friends pay for all of our programs and all of our AV equipment, and
Right.
that was about $31,500 last year that we spent on that. I don't have a breakdown between the programs and the AV, but the bulk of it I would think would be the programs.
And something that we alluded to, but that, and you may have heard about through various other things, but just to mention it here, we are required by New York State now to have a community-based survey on you know, and so we actually, and strategic plan. And so which is based on that, the results of that survey. So we ran the survey in December. We're still in the process of going through the data from it. But, you know, a couple of things that are really jumping out is there are more hours, more programs, you know, people want more. I mean, we had 300 people respond to the survey, which we were very pleased that. Our consultant said that, you know, given a population of our size, and that we just sort of put it out there on the ether, and she said, if we get 200 people, I'll be happy, and we got 300. So she was very surprised that people in Irvington were willing to tell us, you know, how we could do our job better. You know?
Will the results of the survey be made public, or can the board be?
Yes, absolutely, they will be
Yeah,
made
well, and
public,
once
yeah.
we have, unfortunately, the consultant has had some health issues, so we had hoped to meet early this month, and it looks like we probably won't meet until early next month.
Right.
We have a group of about 8 people between the library and the community that are working on the strategic plan in our mission.
And
once-
she has a couple of focus groups that she's been working on putting together too, for students and parents and teens.
Right.
So.
So once we have that, we'll present that to you.
Absolutely.
You guys have any other questions?
I just had one question. The last item, the fund balance appropriation of 14,000. Is that something that's been done in the past, that is done regularly, or is this a one-time fund balance?
You know, we have in the past, and maybe that's, I don't know if that's something that maybe Larry, because I think there was a couple of years ago that we did a fairly substantial contribution to the budget from the fund balance.
Right, but to compare and contrast it with the general fund, it's infrequent. So it's sporadic in the library in terms of appropriation. So in the general fund,
you should really look at it as a one-time appropriation.
Yes, that, yeah.
So it's really not negating the $14,000 personnel increase, because that's going to be in the budget every year.
It'll be, but what it is doing is essentially stepping it into it's helping
Into the
ease it
following.
into, yeah, so that it's not all just this year.
And also, you're hoping that there'll be room will be made. It's not forever, because you'll be able to
Right.
change your personnel still lower to.
Right,
accommodate
exactly. I'm
this.
hoping that, yeah, as time goes on, we'll be able to, there'll be savings in other ways.
It's like a ball under a carpet. You just need to get past that, and then it's gonna be.
Right, right.
Understood.
Great, thanks so much for coming in, and we'll be deliberating soon.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thank you. I was talking to them before, that's why I had no question.
Next up is review of traffic study proposal for Broadway.
Yeah, so when we last, the board last talked about this a few meetings ago. Since that time, you had received a letter from the neighborhood organization, regarding the traffic and regarding the proposal specifically. So we
We also got input from the building inspector.
and the building inspector as well, yes, I was gonna get to that, so, yeah, so, so we, pass that along to our consultant to kind of take a look and modify the proposal as necessary. And so what's attached to the agenda is the modified proposal. What I can do quickly is just outline the areas that were modified in that proposal. So the first is that, and that this does go back to the building inspector's request, which is that the study area be expanded down to West Clinton, as opposed to Dow's Lane, which is what it was previously. So that was done. The proposal now includes an analysis of several unsignalized intersections and gap analyses at those locations. I believe that was a suggestion that was put into the letter that you received, and our consultant agreed that there would be value to that at a relatively limited cost. The additional intersections for warrant analysis, that did not get included in the proposal. She, I think, felt that those intersections that were suggested would really have no, really very minimal potential for any useful data coming out of that analysis. Their proximity to other intersections is a variety of reasons that they just wouldn't add any value. So we stuck with the one warrant analysis, which I believe was Strawberry Lane. We also didn't take into account the future scenario analysis. I think from our standpoint, there's of course a wide range of scenarios you can consider. That would be something that would be appropriate at a point in the future when there is actually a proposal, as opposed to doing it hypothetically. And so those changes resulted in the revised proposal that you have, which is now 24,500 as opposed to 20,000. Again, no change on the timing. I think we already talked about the timing being delayed probably until the fall at this point, until the East Sunnyside Lane gas construction is complete, and of course the summer would need to pass, and we get back into a normal pattern in the fall.
Did Marissa say if there's, if they move the construction from Sunnyside to Station Road, would that affect it? We'd have to wait till that's done also, or no?
Yeah, I talked about that, and I think while it could be a concern, we really need to see what the detour routes end up being and exactly where they're working and what the closure is, because I don't know that we know yet exactly whether that road is going to be flat out closed the way East Sunnyside is, or whether it'll be, an intermittent closure, one lane at a time. We're just not at the point where we can make that prediction. And those answers would make a big difference, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Permanent closure versus intermittent closures, or one lane road, it could be, I don't know.
So it'll be like a game time decision. So when the fall comes,
Yeah.
if they set up and say, we're working here now, we'll wait and see what it is, shell and analyze what that'll be and
Well-
then decide?
Well, no, I think well, certainly what we want to avoid getting them into construction and then making a decision.
Right,
Because then we might lose another 6 months. So, so I think, we have a series of planning meetings that we would expect to have with Con Edison. I mean, we started planning East Sunnyside back in August for their September, October construction. So we would have the same on Station Road. Once we get a handle on what the traffic patterns are gonna be and what they're, where the gas main is in the road, I mean, those are the types of things that we have to look at. We should have some lead time, plus the fact that the study period is relatively short. It's not, it doesn't have to be there for 6 months.
right.
So I think, they can use a week or two and gather what they need.
Squeeze it in before
Yeah.
we start doing it.
Yeah, so I think, we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, no,
But the goal is not to do a game time decision completely. We will
Right.
hopefully do it a little bit ahead of the game.
Okay. Yeah, it's the time, I mean, it's so, the construction is so disrupting, figuring out what the reality is.
They're also going to do an analysis of the existing timing of the existing lights.
Yes, I think,
Is that affected by the traffic change from Sunnyside Lane, or is that something
no.
No, because they just want to.
that can go forward?
What she said she can do is, she's obtaining the information through a FOIL request, so I don't even know if that's been done yet, frankly. And once she sees it, if the first test, from what I understand, is if the timing of the lights hasn't been changed in a long time, then there's a much better chance of digging into it and making some adjustments. If the timing has only recently been changed, that likelihood is a lot less. So that's some of the data that she wants to see back, so.
Good, I mean, again, 20,000, 24,000, I think it's like, again, this is similar to like back when we were having so many complaints about speeding and we started doing the monthly or weekly moving around of
The radar
the
codes.
radar.
Yep.
So it's just great to have the data. This is probably long overdue because, this is something we can all visually see. I think theft is similar to speeding. But I think we all sit in it every day. So putting numbers on it and finding out if there are, places that can have it abated some or, again, the traffic light issue, at least we get that out of the way. Because we've been talking about that for months. I'm excited to get this data just to see how bad we are versus, how bad it feels sometimes. And I'm also curious about the times of day. If it's, to me, it seems like there's some times of the day that are just awful. And then most of the day isn't so bad, so which is really interesting.
Right.
And, maybe there's strategies there too. So I think before we can kind of comment on mitigating strategies, we need to know exactly what's going on.
Well, I think
this.
yeah, and there's 3 time periods which I believe they're studying, which is the morning rush, the afternoon peak, and then the evening rush. So the afternoon peak, of course, being the school.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of it's dictated by school. The morning rush is kind of both directions.
It's a big factor on
Yeah.
Broadway for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to, any kind of abatement will come from dealing with the school, would be my guess, and changing patterns of behavior, but it's going to be difficult.
I mean, it's one way in, one way out to the middle school and high school as I experience on a daily basis.
I also think, I'm not sure, but I remember being a little more confused on their traffic, on the Strawberry Lane warrant analysis. It seems clearer in the wording here about what they're doing. I remember it was confusing that they said that they were testing 4-hour and 8-hour warrants, but they didn't say, as they're saying here, warrant 1, warrant 2, warrant 3.
Right.
And now they're actually saying that they're doing an 8-hour volume, when I think initially wasn't that clear. This wasn't
Right.
clear to me. So
Right.
So it seems like it's worded better.
But they're just matching what the state requires, is that what they were doing? Do I remember that right?
Yes,
Meeting?
that was the answer, yeah.
And I think that's the other thing is that we kind of want to have our own idea before it comes down from on high. I think, again, not that we're, don't want to work with the state, but, it's going to be nice to be able to say we have our own numbers and we have our own pinch points and identify with some data, not just, hey, we know it's really bad there. So,
I'm sure they hear that all the time, so.
yeah, exactly.
All right, so I mean, if there's no other questions, I can, move forward. Not that there's a huge rush, but I can move forward at least to get the proposal moving forward. I'll put that in front of you at at an upcoming meeting and go from there. But if you have any other comments, obviously, let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. So I had Mary Ann on in case anything came up. I don't know, Mary Ann, you didn't have any questions, I assume? Good, okay.
Maybe we want to quickly go over the
Thank you.
priorities. I didn't have any, if anybody had any broad brush statements now, I mean, feel free to make them, since it was on the agenda, but I just didn't really, I wasn't gung ho to discuss this in depth tonight, so.
Now, my only comment, and I think I sent it in an email in reference to the priorities. I think somewhere we need to include the need for multifamily housing, the need for us to figure out a way to get this done, at least to word it. I think certainly with what's coming down from what might be coming down from New York State, it seems like half their requirements we've already met, I think, by changing our zoning proactively. But I think that we should make it a priority, at least a public priority, that we want to continue to find ways to get multifamily housing and other housing options and choices in the village. I'm not sure whether it needs to be part of the 5 broad areas or just a higher up priority.
Yeah, at one point in the history of this document, it was up in the broad areas.
We probably took it out when we did the zoning, but.
Yeah, it could be. So it makes sense to include something more succinct down below. Okay.
That makes sense, yeah. I wasn't sure if like reevaluating the guest power leaf blow ban deserves to be on the first page, if that's like one of the most important things we'll get done this year.
Right, so the reason that that's there is that
We don't want to forget about.
the law actually sunsets on December 15th of 2023. So the use of gas-powered leaf blowers phases out and is no longer allowed after that date. So what was said back when the law was originally adopted is that we gave a several years out, I think it might have been about 3 years or so, between when it was adopted and when the sunset happens. We gave that amount of time so that the notifications could be out there, so the landscaping companies could be aware, the residents could be aware to some extent, but also gave time for the technology of the leaf blower equipment to change and maybe improve. I don't know. You're going to need to learn about that and understand it over the course of this year. And if you look at it and you decide that, everything's great, everyone's been notified, we're just going to roll off our books and that's it, then there's nothing to do. But I think you at least owe it to the process to look at it and look at it before December 15th. So that's why it's on the front page.
But I remember that reasoning, we had determined at that point, not to put the onus on the board that was going to be there, but on December, but to give them, they would have to make an affirmative change to the law based on the fact that they felt it wasn't fair to do that at that point.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, with a lot of it being technological advancements of gas powered leaf or battery powered leaf blowers, things like that.
Yeah, and it also gave, a realistic opportunity for landscaping companies to change out their equipment, not just, at a specific date, but as their equipment was in need of replacement, they could replace it with different equipment. So it really was a compromise, a true compromise at the time. But if we do nothing, and if I didn't put it on the list here for you, then it would just expire and be done with it. And I'm not sure that's what the board ever intended in the beginning. I think they wanted to reevaluate.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense.
But that's why.
To do, yeah.
Yeah, no, now with the context, that makes sense.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought of, and I don't know if this is appropriate for the priorities because it might be too narrow, but I think that sometimes we play catch up on recognizing you know, when it was Pride Month, you know, Black History Month and things like that. And I don't know, I know we do have on there that we, the Committee on Diversity and Equity, and maybe that would take care of that, because they would do a better job of being able to look into it and tell us, hey, guess what's coming up? This is what we think represents the village, Diwali, whatever we want to recognize, right? But that's something that I think that the board should be on top of, regardless whether there's a committee or not, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that I'd like to make a priority, but I don't, like, again, if it belongs underneath the committee, then I understand that, but that's just something that jumped out at me that I thought was important, that wasn't mentioned in the document.
Okay, well, I can probably do something on a compound basis to
Okay.
tie in the committee with the need to be responsible for that.
And I
So-
say that because we've supported it every time. It's always been like, oh yeah, we should do that for Pride, and it affects you too, because then we send you scrambling, right? Like, you would rather have this done in a calm manner, right?
Right,
You know, and
yeah.
then,
Well, what lights to have on the tower.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So-
the new addition we have to that, yeah.
Right.
So
right.
I just thought that's something that we should be more intentional about and more planned out about, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not like there was a battle, oh, I don't think we should do that. Everyone thought we should do it, but it's just that we thought of it in June 1st or whatever it was instead of. So nice to know it was coming, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I was thinking the same thing, but I guess in my head I was like, oh, this is what this committee would do, but I think you're right to call out with something else. And I don't know, like, we have certain events that just are part of, like, it's a system that happen every year, like Oktoberfest, and figure we could get these on that schedule, and I don't know what that entails. I don't know, like, it seems like Parks and Rec is already doing so much. I don't know if they could take on more events.
Well, I mean, Juneteenth's been incorporated pretty nicely in the last couple of years. I mean, that was something that was, not last second, but
Right.
something that was really only acknowledged 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah. Well, coming up on 3 years. Yeah, and that wasn't a village event, and it still isn't necessarily a village event, but we obviously support it. But those types of things, look, I mean, there's a process of identifying what you want to do and then actually carrying it out. And, that the process of identifying it is either on a board level, or if you want staff to assist with that, or if you have a committee to assist with that, but someone's got to identify what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I think some of it was that we thought that the committee would help us identify
Right.
the calendar events.
Right.
Yeah.
In a year.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I took off my earpod things. So I think that the committee is something that we have to recommit to. And I do think that, like, we have, interest in our community, but I do think that, like, things like in the past, like Juneteenth is kind of like a volunteer outside of kind of the village, kind of what we do. So I do think we need to take, in terms of priorities, we also do need to kind of think about how we spend event budgets and, like, what other events we might want to do, right? To kind of get in line with what our, with our thoughts about being an inclusive community. So I think I'm happy to hear everyone saying this, because it is, to me, like a twofold thing, right? I think we definitely need community input, and I think that would be great. And I do think we have people in the community that are interested in this. And I think they'll be even more excited if we have, if the board is committed to doing it, which I think we are, right? So I just think it's a matter of, like, getting the word out there and then kind of, like, moving forward. I personally was ecstatic when our toy soldiers went multicultural, right? So I think there are such little things that we could be doing better, and we're all super busy, but I think it's a combination, and I'm 100% behind this, like, dual approach as I get on a plane. But thankfully my flight was delayed, so I was able to stay much longer than originally thought. Oh, and you all got to, I didn't realize I still had my video on, so you got to see my ear. My apologies for that.
All right, well, I think that's a good kickoff. We can go back and revisit.
Yeah.
Good, okay. Thanks for the feedback.
So I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session regarding collective bargaining and personnel.
Second.
I will second.
We got it. Thank you.